Hi, and welcome to Writing with Sandhya. This is Women's International Women's Month, and I have a lot of wonderful authors who are writing about women. And one of them is Rohini Paranjpe Sathe, who's with me today. Welcome to the channel, Rohini.
Thank you, Sandhya, for inviting me. Happy to be here. Privileged also. It's great. Looking forward.
Yeah, thank you. You've really been very supportive of the channel. You've, I think, watched all the episodes, give feedback, and I really appreciate that. And you're also...
I've enjoyed watching all your episodes. I've watched a fair number of them, and your guest list has been really impressive. So it's been great fun watching them. Yeah.
Thank you. And you have a book out, so I thought, okay, let's just jump in and let's start talking about your book. So your book is Being Good Enough. So can you tell me the premise of the book?
Here it is.
Yeah. I have a book. Yeah.
I love holding it up, at every opportunity I get. Yeah. So Being Good Enough is a novel I wrote, and it's the story of a woman of today, a single mother Jyoti, who's living in Mumbai and working hard, juggling two jobs, really trying to raise her son the best she can, trying to secure the best possible future for her son. But of course, there's a backstory to her, why and how she is what she is today. And we know that she's actually living in hiding in Mumbai. She's separated from her family and her friends that inhabited her past in Delhi. And so you come to the themes that, find their way through the narrative. And it's generally about the fault lines that fracture our society, and then people segregate according to affiliation, to regions, religions, of course, gender, caste. There's so many issues which, pit one against the other. And Jyoti happens to get ensnared or trapped within one such fault line. And she's literally swung like a puppet along the religious divide. And there's some choices that she makes, some choices that are forced upon her, some decisions that she makes, and that unfortunately some of them turn out to be awkward or inconvenient for members of her own family. I mean, it's a very patriarchal family. The father and the brother have the dominant role in decisions that are made for everyone in the family. And the father has, political aspirations of his own. And so when she chooses to befriend somebody from a different religion, it becomes difficult for him to handle. And so there are consequences of her choices. And she pays the price for those choices. And then, so the whole system of patriarchal privilege and, the entitlement, the sense of entitlement that some men have, that they have the right to arrange women's lives for them. So she's run through some difficult situations. Some, there's violence in her own house, where she is subjected to violence in her own home from people that she has known all her life. There is violence outside. There's sexual exploitation. There is sexual violence. There is rape. And she goes through all of that. And she's a survivor. She's a fighter. And so fortunately, there's huge resilience within her. So every time she's boxed in, into some kind of confine that the patriarchs would like to shove her into, she tries to break free and tries to reclaim her life for herself. And but she's got that kind of fighting spirit in her. And while I was writing it, I was very disturbed by the lot of so many women. I mean, there's so many Jyotis out there in the world, and this is a story. This is fiction, but the truth out there can be even more chilling, really. And there's so many women who have been through much worse, and who probably are too embarrassed or ashamed or whatever to give an account of what they have suffered. Or maybe the world wasn't ready to listen, so that's the basic premise of the book.
Mhm. Yeah, sounds like it's like a very real story, and obviously, I think it's a story of struggle, but also of hope. So it sounds like you're touching on a lot of like raw and in difficult subjects. So what was the hardest scene for you to write?
Uh, in this book, I think there were a couple of episodes that were really hard for me to write. First off, of course, was the rape itself.
Mm-hmm.
To actually imagine and faithfully be able to recount the torture. Being a woman being pinned down against her will and being forced upon, assaulted in this most horrible way by the rapist. I mean, like uh, it was challenging for me to because I had shivers going down my spine when I was imagining her trauma, really, both physical as well as mental, emotional, the sense of shame that she sort of tries to overcome, the anger that she has also. There's so many things that she's struggling through. And at the same time, while I was writing that scene, I also had to describe the rapist himself, but describe him with some degree of conviction that I can't just paint him a villain and leave it at that. There has to be a rationale to him. There has to be a why to the rape. It's not just always brute testosterone driven. It's not just that.
Yeah.
Because in today's world, I mean, rape is a kind of a strategy of punishment that some people have to as a kind of a warning to the woman to not stray out of her box, really, or or a warning to the world, the other women or men who might be watching, that this is where you belong and this is where you should remain. So there are so many such incidents that we find happening, and it was really very difficult to write both the act of rape, her physicality, emotionality, and his role, why he is doing what he is doing. It was all very difficult. The other part that was a little difficult, not difficult for me, but it was emotionally very, it drew a lot from me, because when she separated from her family, right? So when she's yearning to be with her mother again, or when she goes back to Delhi and she's anticipating her meeting with her mother, and there are scenes from her childhood and from her youth which come back and they flood her mind. And I had lost my mother just a few months before that. So, there is that, I just wept hard and long when I was writing that. And it so happens that as authors, when you're writing about somebody else's pain or joy also, I mean, like you experience it yourself, and sometimes pain affects you, in a very difficult way. And that's exactly how it happened. The loss is now, going back to those scenes. I mean, like today, it's been some years since I lost my mother, but going back to those scenes, I think I would weep all over again, because it's just how we are with, yeah.
In fact, I was talking to another author, and she was saying how writing was actually therapeutic for her. Kind of went through some kind of a loss, but it actually writing about it or drawing out all those emotions, does help. Yeah. So, and I think that's the importance of such books, right? It throws light on such situations, brings an awareness, and maybe help people to think about it or do something about it. So I think it just reflects the contemporary reality, I think, that we have.
Yeah.
So you talked about the premise of this book, and I'm sure this is just the beginning of your journey of writing. So, and I know you write in other ways as well. So what are the topics that you like to write about?
See, Sandhya, I like to explore people, human beings themselves. I mean, like what makes them tick, what why they think or feel or, act the way they do. What are their wants, their desires, and how far they would go to fulfill them, what compromises they're willing to make along the way, what they're not going to budge on. Who are the strengths where are the strengths that support them, the people that support them, or the people who come into conflict with them, and the dynamics of all of that. And so I love exploring all of that. I also feel that it's all that, ordinary everyday people, however obscure they might be, I think many of them have a lot of drama happening in their lives. It's just that they're not telling their stories, or people are not really paying attention to their stories, because we're so absorbed by whatever is occupying the headlines of today. And then you have the celebrities and the most notorious, etc., etc. But every ordinary life also, there is sufficient drama, riveting drama that is happening, and that just absorbs me. I like to mull over it. I like to analyze it, explore it, and write those stories. But I also understand that when I'm writing about these ordinary people, I'm trying to find my way through the social conditioning that we are all subjected to. I mean, like, put it this way, I mean, like, when we're born, barring our genetic makeup that we have inherited, we're actually quite free. But from every moment onwards, I mean, like, every social interaction we have, there is some layering that is happening on us, on our minds, and there are labels which are given to things, good, bad, right, wrong, failure, success, just, unjust, etc. There are guideposts which are, set out for us, and we, through our lives, we negotiate our way through those guideposts and labels, and try to, tweak them or redefine them over the ages, according to how our ideas of justice or fairness or ethics and compassion and all of that, how that evolves, we also redefine those labels. And I love to explore that as well. Sometimes I blog about it. I blog about the certain social problems, or our highlighting of certain, like, academic excellence vis-a-vis something else, like just being human, or being kind, or being, or who is, because of the accident of his birth, which person of which caste is going to do which job, etc. These correlations, which sometimes we still have in certain areas of work, unfortunately. So it just absorbs me. It sort of it gets me thinking, and I enjoy writing. I enjoy addressing these issues. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we'll give a link to your blog also in the description below when it's released, so people can go there and read more about the topics that you spoke about. And you kind of answered something that I was going to ask you is, whom are your characters based on? And you did say it's like contemporary, everyday kind of people. Yeah. But are they like, real people, real stories, or you just take them and just, use your imagination to build them up? Like, what is your process for, coming up with your characters?
I would love to say that I've imagined each and every person, but I'll be like, I don't, nobody is anybody else exactly, to the T. Like, it's not a perfect fit to anybody else I know. But even though there is a lot of imagination and, thinking that, okay, let's, this person looks like that, or believes that, and talks like that, or is more prone to anger, or is more prone to forget, or things like. Ultimately, all this, even if I claim that this is all imaginary, ultimately imagination or creation cannot happen in a vacuum. I mean, like, there is so much material that has already been inputted, just the whole living itself is such a huge experience. The people I meet, that I've interacted with, and I've examined closely and unknowingly also, because sometimes, sometimes you're writing something and you're reminded about an expression on somebody else's face, and you put that down. There are little things that you've drawn from life itself, also what we've read. There's a huge amount of fiction from, or material from all over the world, really. Right. That yeah. So there's
lots of sources.
Lots of sources.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's the privilege of of writing. And I think any creation is we are able to take all this and distill it in our own unique way. Yeah. And I guess that's similar for. I was also going to ask you about how you get the ideas for your plots. But what's your process of? Do you like to? Do you just have an idea and start working on it? Do you like to plot the whole thing and outline it? Tell me how you get the ideas and how you work on the plot.
The ideas come very spontaneously. I mean, like there must be something. Frankly, I wouldn't be able to pinpoint the exact, the moment or the or the source or the inspiration behind the creation of a story or the genesis of a story. I wouldn't be able to identify that, but maybe there are questions which upset me, or that I'm thinking over, some news which has I've read, or stories that I have read, and maybe not recently, but something that I've read some years ago, and that might still be churning inside me, and then a story is born from that. But so frankly, this book, Being Good Enough, I have said before, it practically wrote itself, because it was so spontaneous. I mean, like all I did was I just saw these people and, their interactions, and the way they stood and sat and slept, and the way they spoke with each other, and the dynamics of it all. I just visualized it, the places, and smelt the fragrances, felt their emotions, thought their thoughts, and I just sort of recorded it faithfully. So I didn't even craft it. I didn't plot it. There are lots of movements between past and present, and I didn't structure it at all. As I saw the story unfold, I was writing it down. Of course, there are some times when I have to go back and chop and change, because something else that is interesting has come up and it needs to be, but that's how this story wrote. But again, there's so much of information and material outside in the world. What plots are like, and what is plausible, the chain of causations, etc., action, reaction, and you can just craft from there if you wish to. Yeah,
that's brilliant. I think it's lovely that it just came so spontaneously. So I think it's yes, yeah. So it seems to me that I think writing comes from a very deep place for you, and you like to talk about all these topics on social justice and all of that. So what does writing mean to you? Can you tell me a little bit about like your background and how you arrived at writing?
So see, writing came very late for me. I mean, like it's I was singing mostly in Hindustani classical, but it so happened that I had a back problem, and that sort of interfered with any substantial riyaz. So it was a difficult, frustrating period, because it wasn't easy. But to sort of retain my sanity, I fortunately stumbled upon writing, and I discovered that I could do it, and that I enjoyed it. And that's how it started, the whole journey of writing. And from becoming a writer by accident, today I am an established author. So that it's been a long, fruitful journey. But every single time I write, everything I write, all I have known is just pure joy. It's bliss. It's absolute bliss. First of all, I think it's a privilege to be able to imagine people, to sort of dress them up with emotions, and allot them to a particular place, a particular time, give them their families, and then explore how they behave, etc. It's so exciting. It's so invigorating as well. At the same time, I found this computer screen to be one of my best friends, because it doesn't judge. I can be completely honest. There is no artifice at all when I'm there and I'm facing the screen and I'm writing for myself. So, and if I'm talking to you or to anybody else, or if I'm, if there is an element of, presentation that comes in, but when I'm writing, it's just the computer screen in front of me. It's just me, bare, and I get to know myself as well, discover myself as well, and it's extremely rewarding. It's one of the best things that has happened to me, to be able to write. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Are there some things that you have learned about yourself? You said that during this process.
Yeah, in the sense that I am, what I am comfortable with, what I am not comfortable with. Also to learn to allow for all kinds of deviance from the normal. We to not judge is something that I have understood, and I have been more accepting of people and their quirks and their so-called failings, or their so-called inadequacies, or whatever, that the world unkindly labels them as that. But there are reasons for that. There are, I do believe that writing has made me more empathetic, more understanding, and more accommodating of, yeah.
Of other people. Yeah, because I think there's a whole story behind it, right? So I think if people just see at the superficial level, or just stereotype, I think you don't see the richness of the story which lies behind. I think, yes. So so far it seems to me that the topics there, and the story, I think, wrote very naturally. But did you face any challenges in the writing process?
Writing per se, that I didn't really face any challenges. It's been pretty smooth. The actual writing. Sometimes, I mean, like, there is a kind of a, I wouldn't call it really a writer's block. I mean, like, sometimes the story doesn't move as fast or as clearly as I would like it to, and I'm a little ambiguous about it. It's a little, I'm a little tentative about, should it go this way or that way, so it's just that. But somehow, for me, the blocks have never been really substantial, and whatever blocks they might have been, they've all dissolved on their own. Fortunately, I didn't have to force my way through, so it's been a pretty smooth writing. Has been pretty smooth. It's post-writing that has been the challenge. Getting published has been a challenge, which I experienced in my earlier book also. But in this book, fortunately, Suhail Mathur of the Book Bakers, of our literary agency, he picked up this book, and this was smooth sailing after that. So even that problem got sort of resolved. Yeah.
I think I've heard about your subjects, but since this is, during Women's Month, so what are your views on women's writing, books about women authors? What are your views on that?
Oh, there's brilliant work that has been done. I remember being in college, and I think I wasn't really equipped enough to read The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. But even then, I was so shaken by that book. And ever since, I have been reading and been more receptive to people writing about women's problems, women especially writing about women's problems, because I think they would do it with a shade more of authenticity. Just when the pandemic started, I remember I read The Milkman by Anna Burns, which was phenomenal. I mean, the kind of the masking that a young girl does, renders her face sort of unreadable, inscrutable, because she wants to avoid the inquisitive gaze of others, and wants to hide her views and her thoughts to herself, and how everybody wants to, a piece of her, but she's, there was Girl, Woman, Another, which was written by Evaristo, which was almost subversive. I mean, like, it was very grateful that it got written. There's so many women who, I remember getting carried away by Ferrante's the series, the Neapolitan series, right, starting from My Brilliant Friend, and the way she writes about women, you know, their emotionality, their physicality, their thoughts, everything. It's like, you know, writing with almost like with forensic precision, you know, a bit by bit, part by part, and laying it all bare. And even the men, I mean, like she's put them under the same merciless microscope, and it's so fascinating to watch, to read all of that. And it feels great to be writing and to be reading all these, writing in the time of these women authors, and to be reading their work as well. At home, we have such huge women writers. I mean, like we have, of course, the Arundhati Roys, the Desai mother and daughter, Sehgal. In our group as well, we have so many brilliant authors. You have written about your father's story from Burma to Bangkok. The last book I read was Rashima's how relationship is work, and it's not easy. Or before that, I'd read Priya Sethi's book, Past Life Regressions. I mean, like there are different themes which are tackled even among this brilliant talent in our group as well. But this is just the writing in English, no, Sandhya? In India, we have so many women writers from all regions writing in our languages. I mean, I come from Pune. There is a whole tradition of women writers who have been powerful voices, who have influenced thought and opinion and changed outlooks. So a few years ago, I fortunately read Iravati Karve's Yugant, and it was a collection of essays on the Mahabharata, where she's literally, the Mahabharata, it's been shorn of all the mythology and the mysticism and the miracles and all of that, and she's treated just the core, as she, in her words, the critical text of the Mahabharata, you know, as just a historical documentation of the war at Kurukshetra, why and how it happened and what were the consequences of that. And it's a collection of essays, and the themes that she has discussed, that she has raised and discussed. I mean, like patriarchy, the gender roles, the delineation of the women's responsibilities and the men's responsibilities, caste, the slurs which are cast on people because they belong to a particular caste, and all of that they existed in the millennia before, and that they continue to trouble us today is sad. And the fact is that this book was written more than half a century ago, and it's still so relevant and insightful today. Yeah.
And then it's also sad that the themes are still continue, some of the themes, right? We hope that some of the themes could have been resolved, but yes. Yes, so I think for all the viewers, I think just encourage you to go and read a lot about women by women. I think it will be a fascinating and, kind of eye-opening journey. So this has been your debut book, and as you've been through the process, do you have any advice for other debut writers? Any tips for them?
This is not my debut book, it's my debut novel. I had a collection of stories which was published before, but for, I don't know whether I advise to, well, I'll say what I tell myself every time, write what you know, write from a place of honesty. First of all, recognize why you're writing, whom you're writing for. If you're writing for yourself, you have the privilege of, you have the liberty to write whatever you want, exactly how you want it. If you're writing for someone else, if you're commissioned to write for a publishing house, or for a particular kind of market or a niche of readers, etc., understand that, understand the parameters of that, and express yourself accordingly. And there's, but whatever it is, even if you're writing for them, write from a place of honesty. If you don't write what you know, even if you don't know something and you're called upon to write it, research it, study it, absorb it, make it your own, and write from that place of knowledge. Because subterfuge or, pretension or something that unfortunately comes through, so yeah, and enjoy writing. I mean, like it's it's so exciting, and it's so cathartic also. It's so liberating. I mean, like, you come to know yourself better, enjoy it. I mean, like, it is a lonely process. Everybody complains it's a lonely process, but any art is when you're actually in the throes of creation, you're just by yourself, but it's wonderful.
Right.
Enjoy.
That's wonderful advice, actually. Yes, just to be authentic and to enjoy yourself, because you're right. I think if you're not, it shows, I think if you're trying too hard, it's just like, it's
Yeah.
the whole, kind of shows. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a little section called the rapid fire. So, a few questions. So do you like to write longhand on notebooks or typing on the computer? I think I heard you say, but what's the answer?
I type. I started longhand. When I first started writing, I was writing articles, etc. And I started longhand, and it was quite difficult. Squiggles everywhere, scratches, but ever since I made friends with the computer, I've been typing, and life is very easy.
Yeah, that's right. So are you an early morning or late night writer?
I write whenever.
Okay.
Whenever.
Okay.
So very often, I'm not a very late night person, but I write whenever an idea occurs, or whenever I need to write this, get it out of my system. I just write. Yeah.
And if you want a writer, what would you have been?
Well, I was singing, so I still continue to sing. So that is who I am. Yeah.
And coming to that, so what kind of music do you like?
I prefer Hindustani classical. Okay. I enjoy listening to Hindustani classical also. But I also enjoy film music, Hindi music, so I was growing up, and my mother was an unabashed fan of Lata Mangeshkar. And so she loved Lata, and I loved Lata because I loved my mother. And of course, as I grew older, I understood why I loved Lata Mangeshkar herself. But there are so many other huge singers and musicians and lyricists. I mean, some of the songs that were written then, the words were like gold, pure gold. So yeah, I enjoy that as well. I mean, I like. It depends. If I have time, I would always go for a khayal, which takes much longer. But if it's driving from spot A to spot B in 5 minutes, I would listen to something on the radio. Yeah.
My mother actually likes Geeta Dutt. She's also a big fan of, old, Hindi songs and all that. And yes, but she likes Geeta Dutt. So finally, so what are you working on next?
Well, I'm finishing my next novel. It's it's from the music. It's based on the music fraternity, and people that I have seen very closely. Some people, but it's not drawn from them exactly. But it's not easy to commit yourself to becoming a full-time musician and to support yourself through it, and the kind of compromises that they sometimes have to make, or the kind of choices they make, etc. Their spouses, and then the shadow of their their single-minded dedication to their art. I mean, what are the costs that are implicit in that for everybody else in the family? And I'm exploring all of that. I've almost finished it, and I shall be taking it to Suhail. Fingers crossed for the next thing.
Fingers crossed, and wish you all the best for that, and a continued good run for being good enough. Thank you so much for coming on my channel, and it was a fascinating discussion that we had. Thank you for sharing all your views.
My pleasure, completely, Sandhya. Thank you so much for inviting me. As I said, it's been it's a privilege to be able to interact with you, and through you, with all your viewers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, bye for now.